All right, for those of you taking JAM very soon, I trust that this is going to help you. I want to quickly look at imageries in literature, and we're going to define it. We're going to identify and explain types of imageries, and we're going to use imagery in creative writing. Of course, you'll be able to do that on your own later. What's the meaning of imagery? Imagery refers to the use of words in such a way that it creates a mental picture in the reader's mind and appeals to either of the five senses, which include sight, hearing, smell, taste, and feeling. So when a person writes a story and makes use of words in a way that in your mind you can taste what is describing, or you can smell what is describing, or you can hear what the person tries to describe, or even see it, then that's imagery as a device. Now let's look at types. We have visual imagery, which is the imagery of sight. We have auditory imagery, which is the imagery of hearing. We have olfactory imagery, which is the imagery that deals with your smell senses. And we have gustatory imagery, which is the imagery that has to do with your taste. And then we have tactile imagery, which is that which has to do with your skin or with feelings, how you feel things. So when words are used that appeals to any of the senses, we call it imagery in literature. Now let's take specific examples. Visual imagery will have this is achieved when words are used to create images that appeal to the sense of sight. Now you can see beside the piece what we can see. We see the sun, we see the sky, and we can see that it's colored up. So if a person tries to describe the rising of the sun, this is probably what you would see. See what you say. It says the red van radiated the gaudy sun rays with a magnificent shine. Now, without seeing this picture on the right hand side, merely reading what you can see on the screen, you're likely to see the picture of a sun, and not just the sun, but that the sun shines. All right, and then we'll move on to the next, which is auditory imagery. Now, for instance, in your Caged Bird by Maya Angelou, if you remember, it says that a bird that stalks down its narrow cage can seldom see through its bars of rage. He said its wings are clipped, its feet are tied, so it opens its throat to sing. Now, the word sing in itself helps us to see, and not just see, visualize, helps us to understand, helps us to think of the sound that comes from the bird. And when that happens, it means that an image has been formed on your mind, and that kind of image is called auditory imagery. So this is achieved when words are used to create images that appeals to the sense of hearing. All right, an example is here: sparrows tweeted under the eaves. The sparrows tweeted under the eaves. Of course, you can see a picture beside this where a bird opens his throat to sing. All right, and then we also have olfactory imagery. This is the imagery that has to do with the sense of smell. Okay, this is achieved when words are used to create images that appeals to the sense of smell. For example, the scent of wet soil reached my nostrils, and my eyes closed on their own accord. All right, so the word scent and the word nostrils tries to conjure a kind of feeling or a kind of image in our minds that has to do with smelling. All right, so let's take a more local example. If you pass by someone roasting a plantain, and we usually call it in local terms boli, and then you pass by it, and then all of a sudden you smell it. Now you try to describe that to someone else in words. When the person is able to picture what you're saying and is able to perceive the same thing that you have described, then something has been achieved there. It's called olfactory imagery. The person has been able to visualize or to imagine what you have written that has to do with the smell of the roasted plantain. Okay, let's go ahead to the next. Here we have gustatory imagery, and this is achieved when words are used to create images that appeal to the sense of taste. For instance, we have freshly baked bread tastes great with thick tea. Now, those of us who are bread and tea lovers, we must have been salivating already. And this is because we are used to that sensation, that taste of bread and tea. And my words here have now restored or brought back those memories. Okay, so whenever words are used and it conjures the sense of taste, we say you have used gustatory imagery, or simply put, the imagery of taste. All right, okay, and then finally here we have the imagery that has to do with the feeling or sense of feeling. We call it tactile imagery. And this is achieved when words are used to create images that appeal to the sense of feeling. For instance, if I say a surge of current ran through his nerves and his muscles pulled. Now you are quickly able to imagine something that in Yoruba we call it paja, or something like a shock in your nerves. All right, and so if you have had that experience before, or you know what it looks like for your nerves, or for you to experience a nerve shock, this description below, a surge of current ran through his nerves as his muscles pulled, could have restored or brought back some memories, probably difficult ones that you have had before in your skin or in your nerves. All right, so this is where we end it on imagery. All right, now you might want to attempt this question. Give an example of a tactile imagery in Bat by D.H. Lawrence. All right, for those of you taking JAM in 2025, it's one of the recommended texts, and just try to put forward an answer to this. Remember, when the poet tries to describe the disgusting flight of bats in the air, he says something. He says, the bats, an uneasy creeping upon one's scalp. Uneasy is a word that tells us the effect of the bat, or the movement of the bat when it comes around an individual's head and tries to creep around it, can be very, very, very disgusting indeed. All right, so that's just an example of a tactile imagery, because right there you're able to feel something around your head when he mentions scalp, and when he mentions an uneasy creeping upon that scalp. All right, thank you very much for listening. See you some other time.